Our next presenter is Dean Mann, and our next South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame inductee is Ruth Rehn. Ruth Rehn. The Lions High and 1966 South Dakota State grad, was an assistant executive director for the South Dakota High School Activities Association for 34 years, starting in 1974. During her tenure, South Dakota added basketball, volleyball, cross country, and competitive cheer and dance for high school girls, and she was the overseeing administrator for all state prep girls sports programs. Rehn helped lead South Dakota as the first state to advocate the use of a smaller basketball for girls, as well as experimenting with the use of rally scoring and the libero player in volleyball. She was instrumental in developing officials associations in gymnastics, basketball, football, wrestling, and volleyball, and assisted with the officials training program. Rehn taught and coached in Minnesota from 1966 to 1974. Ruth is a member of the State Hall of Fame for volleyball and gymnastics. Last month, she was named to the National Federation of State High School Associations Hall of Fame.
Thought maybe they'd have a footstool or something for me here. So you're actually kind of killing me. I noticed on the program and we didn't know what order we were going to be in, and I looked and I thought, I'm the first one that's not deceased that's getting this award tonight. You know, there's probably 3 statements along the way that I always think about or have thought about. One of them is, between birth and death, everything is negotiable. Another one is, no one was ever born with a set of instructions on your toe, tied to your toe. And lastly, it's not what happens to you, but how you would respond to what happens. And so over the years, it seems like I've always had to negotiate things, respond to things, and way back, I grew up on a small farm about 15 miles northwest of here, between Lyons and Crooks, and I loved to be active, and I always liked animals, so my dog and I would be outside sometime from morning until night, playing and doing things and just being active, and of course, not ever being able to do anything at the school level. At school, I would watch the boys in track practice, I would watch them in basketball practice, and think, gee, when'd that be home? Then I would go home, tell my dad to put a basket on the garage so I could, at least shoot the baskets. And then one day I decided I would take our old bamboo fishing pole and pound that between 2 trees in the grove, and maybe I could high jump a little bit. And I also decided I could, in those days it was called broad jump, but now long jump. I would dig a hole in the ground and put some sand in there and see how far I could jump. But to no avail, didn't have any of the opportunities. So off to college I went to SDSU. There I was able to participate in a few play days on field hockey, basketball, and some track. And in those days there was only cinder tracks, and not having any background, I remember no one wanted to hurdle and no one wanted to throw the javelin, because if you fell on the hurdles, you could get hurt on the cinder tracks. And of course, the javelin didn't seem like much fun, so of course I said I would try it. Well, obviously with my short legs, I was not that good of a hurdler, but I did get over. But I still remember the first time I threw the javelin, and I was running, and you have to kind of do the cross. Well, I got my legs all crossed up, and I fell over the line, and I think I went further than the javelin did. So that was probably some of my first early in sports participation. I went out for tennis in class, and Jerry Krabs, an individual at SDSU that I admired very much, just said to me, Ruth, you are never going to make a tennis player. So anyway, as the journey went on, and as I would say, I did continually have a journey. So then I moved to Minnesota, and they were a little more progressive there. That was right at the time where they were thinking about doing some things in sports. Title IX was just passed, and that was the law, the federal law that allowed equal opportunities in both the classroom and in athletics. And it provided me an opportunity to coach. And of course, we didn't have any coaching background really in college, so you just kind of learned along the way. And there were always challenges there, whether it be fighting for uniforms or fighting for gym space or money or additional coaches or just getting some recognition as the boys. I recall going to SDSU for my graduate school, and I think it might have said in the program I was the first woman to run and finish in the Jackrabbit 15. And here is what, I think this was like in 1973 or 74. Here's what it said in the paper. Wold wins the road race. So it talks about Clyde Wold winning the road race, then it talks about who won, and then it says, there were 77 starters and 73 runners finished. 2 girls entered the competition for the first time and both finished. Well, and then another paper did have the results. So that was just kind of an idea of, there was just always a struggle. And when I was coaching back in Austin, Minnesota, I remember we started track and gymnastics, and we had some volleyball, but we had the same uniforms for every sport. The volleyball players and the basketball players had the same uniform. And we also, in track, weren't even allowed to practice with the boys' team. And as you know, now track meets are all together and you can practice. And I think there are some current Hall of Fame inductees here tonight and past inductees that have kind of had had involvement with Title IX and have been either the participant, either by participation, coaching, or advancement. And I will hear Roger Nelson here in a little bit, but as a basketball coach and volleyball official and all of his work with girls' sports, and it was right at the time when maybe it wasn't the most popular thing to do. And Lisa Van Gore, for example, in the 80s, she had an opportunity to play basketball. I really enjoyed watching Lisa, and of course her high school coach, Bob Winter, who isn't with us here tonight because of the weather, but he was a great promoter of girls' sports, and he always helped. In fact, it was Bob and I's idea that we were going to have all the classes of girls basketball here in Sioux Falls, and we had Dean Mann as the athletic administrator in Sioux Falls, and we tried that, but it didn't go over real well. We thought it went over real well, but some of the teams didn't think so. But anyway, those were some of the issues that we were going through in Title IX. Peggy shot Kirby, of course. It was always okay, I think, to play golf. So even before Title IX and the Activities Association had state golf tournaments, and I think, Peggy, I think you won in 1973. It was right before I came to the Activities Association office. And I can't miss not saying Lolly Forsyth, who was one of the first inductees of the Hall of Fame, 11 state gymnastics championships through her credit. And I have to tell this little story. This would never happen today. We were in Dolan, South Dakota, region gymnastics meet. Sioux Falls, Washington is there. And for whatever reason, we don't have all the judges get there at the right time, and we start the meet anyway. And we have new judges, but we have some real experienced coaches there. After the first rotation, I realized that this is just not going the way it should be. So I said, we're going to throw away all the score sheets, all the results, and we're going to start all over. So we started all over about 10 o'clock at night. And anyway, and I think Fred Clauden, who is here tonight too, may recall that story, because I don't think the Washington gymnastics team got home until the next day. So those were some of the early things, and as my work with the Activities Association progressed, obviously all of the progress that was made, everything that we did is all because of the coaches, the officials, the athletes. Everybody worked together. I myself couldn't have done all of the work. it was a lot of people, of course, and everybody didn't always want to jump on the bandwagon. Sure, there was a war to fight, and you decided what battles you could win and what battles that you didn't. So as we progressed, in fact, you all know now we have the boys and girls track meets are together, and in fact, here's another little story I'm going to tell about Dean Mann. I think earlier explained he's almost Mr. Track in the state as far as officiating and starting. Dean and I have a little ongoing joke. He's probably glad that I'm now retired, because when Dean started to be the meet referee at our state track meet, I went to him and said to Dean, I think we need a new meet referee, so would you shadow the previous one who was about to retire? So Dean always says to me, if I ever have you come up to me and say that somebody's going to shadow me, I know that I am on my way out. But Dean, you're still doing a great job. Anyway, my 34 years with the Activities Association has gone by very quickly. I often kid that I've gone through 4 executive directors and 5 assistants. And at the beginning, I was the newbie on the block, but boy, at the end, I had the most experience, and I always said, I'm the one that's going to train you guys from what's happening. But boy, when I first started, I remember the first state basketball tournament I went to in the mid-'70s. I followed Ralph Wilkinson, who was in our fine arts, a very distinguished, gray-hair looking individual. In those days in the arena, you couldn't get from one side to the other. You always had to either be one of the staff people or obviously know who was at the door. And for some reason, I didn't have a pass. Ralph just said, follow me. So I followed Ralph. Ralph got right through. They stopped me. I never got over to the other side for the rest of that night because nobody knew who I was. So until I think I finally rounded up a program and showed somebody my picture and said, can I get on the other side? So I had some identity recognition too in those early days, because back in that time, all of the administrators, of course, were all men. So over the years, it's just been a treat for me. I watched hundreds of state events, directed probably hundreds of state events, watched thousands of outstanding athletes, and had the privilege to meet many great coaches, and also a very special group of individuals that oftentimes I think get overlooked, and those are the officials. And I've got some great friends in both from the officiating ranks and the coaching ranks that are here with me tonight, and they have just been a great part of my life as well. In fact, one of them, past volleyball official Peggy Kessler, and I just have to mention this, just got back a couple days ago from Washington, D.C. You may know Peggy has recovered from pancreatic cancer and is a leader nationally. You may have seen her on many TV programs. She just received the very first Randy Posh Award, and he was the individual with the last lecture that you may recognize. So a special thanks to Peggy. So again, I want to personally thank everyone for the help they've given me over the many years. I want to thank the Sports Hall of Fame Committee. This is a great privilege, being one of 13, I believe, women to be inducted out of 195 people. And a special thanks also that goes to my family that's here tonight. Over the years, I've missed many of their events and haven't gone to a lot of functions, and it's been a pleasure for me to have them here, my sister Isla and brother-in-law Jim, and cousins Patty and Phyllis that are sitting here, and nephew David and his wife Karen, and son Luke, and Eliza. Eliza is my third grade playmate. We just have lots of fun together. And nephew Brian and his wife Val. So thank you for coming, and again, it's been a great pleasure. You know, and I've always enjoyed having fun. And of course, I always say when you go to banquets, people like to hear funny stories, and I'm never that funny, but I like to have fun while I'm working. And if any of you saw a scrapbook back there of my early days of coaching, one of my gymnasts, they had a story in the school paper about sarcasm and having fun at meets, and we'd think like, well, gee, you must like going on a trip because you're tripping over the Florex mat all the time. Or one of the gymnasts said to me, well, so how did the meet go last night? I said it was one of our most successful meets. We only had about 15 falls and 5 injuries. Well, and obviously, again, sarcastic, and everybody just laughed. But anyway, it's been fun, and one of the retirement gifts someone had given me last year, and it's a plaque, and I have that hanging on my wall right now, and it just kind of gives you an idea of how life can be fun, and it goes like this. Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside, totally worn out, proclaiming, wow, what a ride. I've had a great ride. Thank you.